Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Steve Pond. I'm sort of here to continue what Javier Bardem started a couple hours ago. Please let me introduce Director Juan Antonio Bayona.
Woo! Woo! Bravo!
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, you sort of set up the background for this film with Javier. So let me just say, you were talking about how you first read the book while you were making The Impossible. Between the time you made The Impossible and this, you did 2 other movies. Were you deliberately walking away from this project to do other stuff before you came back to it?
Well, first of all, I couldn't answer Javier's question because I was spoiling the film by answering the question. He was referring to this idea of killing the narrator, you know. When I read the book, I was very impressed about this kind of like, it's less about the fact and more about the spirit. So how capture that level of spirituality into the film. And the way to get that was to allow one of the dead guys to tell the story. By doing so, you're basically killing the audience. That's something that Alfred Hitchcock would love to explore. You know, he did it already in Psycho somehow. By killing the audience and allowing the audience to live the rest of the story through all the characters, it was like a way of telling the audience or making the audience to live the experience they live in the mountain, allowing themselves to live in the other ones, you know. So that the idea came from there. It took us a while to answering your question to get there. It's true that I discovered the book while I was doing The Impossible. Right after The Impossible, this movie felt wrong. It was too close, but it was after there was some monstricals that we tried to do the film. But we couldn't find the money. We were working on the script in the meantime. The first email I sent to the survivors was in 2011. I started to work in the script with Pablo Bierzi, the author of Society of the Snow, in 2016, and we finally got the green light in 2020. I was doing some of the things in the meantime.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to that idea of the dead narrator, because when I saw the film, it was like, wait a minute. This has been a dead guy talking to us. I mean, it is such a shock at that point in the film to realize that New is not around and he's telling the story. Was that something that
It's about getting into the minds of the characters. Not only the characters, but also the people we talk to do this film. Not only the survivors, but the families of the deceased also. And they didn't like the word death. Every time I said, well, the death, they were like, well, they are not here, but they are not dead. So that was like a way of, again, killing the narrator is a way of, and then you hear his voice. Where is that voice coming from? Where? He's not dead. He's still there, somehow.
So was that an idea that you had early on?
Yeah.
So for you guys, what were your first conversations with Juan Antonio like, and how did you get involved? Michael, I know you were involved after it was finished.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was going to be working on the movie. It was, we've known each other for so many years, many years. And usually what happens is he will come to town. He will say, "Hey, I'm in town and I have my new movie. Will you look at it and just tell me what you think?" And I was like, "Sure, this is what we do." And except for this one was different because by the end of the evening, I was scoring the movie, and it wasn't something that I expected. But I remember the first time I saw the film. He brought it to my house. We watched it at my house, and I was floored, both emotionally, all of it. I was very taken aback from it, and immediately in my head was spinning with everything I felt like I should be done for this film musically. But even at that time, I was thinking like, okay, I'm gonna just tell him, give him what my thoughts are, and he can then take that to whoever ends up scoring this film. But by the next morning, I was scoring the film, and which I was very thankful to, but I was also terrified at the same time because it was such a true and honest story, one that I knew about since I was a child. I grew up in New Jersey, and I knew about this story. My sister still has all her, she was like, she kept diaries for everything, and she went back and found the diary. She was like, she wrote about this plane that crashed in the Andes, and she was talking about how sad that, and I remember, so it's a cultural thing that I remember as a kid, and to kind of, it always sort of terrified me in many ways, and I always felt so sadness for this story, and so I don't know, for me it was almost a way to sort of process all of those feelings, and on top of that, then getting to know the survivors as well was an unbelievable experience. So for me, it was like incredibly emotional, cathartic experience, one that I never would have expected, but it was tough. It was a tough thing to sit there every day and work on.
And you wouldn't even have been able to do it if not for the writer's strike, right?
Well,
You were
yes.
directing a movie?
Yes, I was directing a movie for Warner Brothers, and we were like in full force, ready to get going, and then the writer's strike happened.
That same night.
That exact night that he brought the film to my house, and he was just like, "Well, hey, there's a writer's strike." So.
I look at you and say, "Well, Michael, you're totally unemployed now."
Yes.
Have you ever done a movie with subtitles?
Well, I am truly, honestly honored that I got to do this film and get to do it with my friend Jota here, who did an incredible job. Yes.
So Pedro, how'd you?
So for me it was first of all it was a shock because I'm from Uruguay, and this is a story that runs in the we all know about it. And when I was a kid, I was always running around with this book. I got reminded about that fact by a friend when I was kind of deciding if I was going to do this movie because I was working too much. But suddenly Jota comes with this idea, and it's a story that I know very well, and like it was obviously a great opportunity to be part of it, because I felt like how to honor this story properly, how to do it with love, and at the beginning the things we like, I remember Jota saying like he wanted to be in a way free, or follow the emotion of this actor. So everything we made was the machinery was put to work for that thing, to follow the emotion, follow these actors. These actors were very well prepared, and it was difficult because the logistical problems that a shoot like this presents, to shoot in the mountains, to go to the Andes Mountains, to shoot in Sierra Nevada in Spain, to shoot in Uruguay, and on a stage, and chronologically, it was very challenging, but at the same time amazing. And we had a great crew that helped us to do exactly that, follow the emotion, follow these actors, follow Jota, and but doing it with this quality. It's like this movie sits in a weird space, which is like for a moment you totally believe it. It feels like a documentary, but also it has really nice cinematic stuff that tells you the story with more than words.
I feel like you made a couple decisions right from the start that completely influenced what you were doing. One of which is that this movie was gonna be in Spanish. I mean, you'd made like 3 English language movies, I think, in a row at that point. But you were gonna do it in Spanish, and that you weren't going to have movie stars in here, that it was gonna be young actors, I think many of whom hadn't acted before. I mean, why were those 2 decisions crucial to you?
Well, we bet for we try to do the most authentic and real approach to the story, and faithful to what they went through. So by shooting the film in English would have been totally wrong. We wanted to be as close as possible to the culture, the political context, to the time. So that's one of the reasons why I choose Pedro Luque. I saw he did an extraordinary job in Don't Breathe. It's a movie set up in total dark, in only one location. So all of that made me believe that he was the right guy. It looks beautiful also, and at the same time he's from Uruguay. Sometimes the movies shot in Latin America by foreign directors, they focus more in the exotic, like they had this kind of tourist eye, and I wanted to shoot it from the inside. So it had to be very important to have somebody that will understand what we were trying to tell, and at the same time the language was very important. And the other thing that you said about the unknown actors, yes, it's a movie that the actors were going through a very demanding process. We shot chronologically. They were losing weight for 4 months, more than 40 pounds, some of them. They were following a strict diet with a group of nutritionists, asking them on exam weekly, just to make sure that they were okay. They shot in the snow, going through all the emotions that the characters went through, So having somebody, a famous actors, a famous face there, felt that they maybe we would not get this kind of like excitement of a young actor who hasn't done that much, At the same time, also I didn't want to have everybody. There was nobody more important than the other ones in that plane, I didn't want to have protagonists. I wanted a narrator, but I didn't want a protagonist. So I didn't want anyone to feel more important than anyone in that plane. So I decided to go to an unknown actors to avoid that.
So what was the preparation involved? A lot of, you were dealing with a book where all the survivors told their stories, but it involved a lot more conversations that you and your team had with the survivors and with the families of the ones who died?
Yeah, we were very careful from the very beginning, and trying to get these people for us was fundamental to get their help. So we went to Uruguay, we sat down with all the survivors, we shot them, we shot interviews with them for a week, 4 or 5 hours per each of them, so we came back to Spain with more than 50 hours of interviews. By doing so, I got an idea of who they were. That was very helpful for the auditions. So I had an idea of each character, and I was looking for people that will remind me not only the way they look like, but also the kind of personality I was looking for, because it's always helpful if you have an actor that brings something that reminds you the character. So to give you an example, Numa is a guy who's all the time with this kind of frustration that he believes that he's not doing enough. And I remember Enzo, who's an extraordinary actor, like all the time kind of like frustrated in the auditions, because he was thinking all the time, I can do it better. So I saw Numa there. This is Numa, this is what I'm looking for. So each actor is different. You need to adapt to each of them. But I was looking for people who already bring a lot with them that will remind me the characters. After that, we did almost 2 months of rehearsals, 7 weeks in Barcelona. We were rewriting the script as we were going through the film, which was very helpful. And then we sent them to Uruguay meet the survivors and the families of the disease. That gave them like a commitment, you know, from the moment they created a relation with these people, there was a stronger commitment with what we were doing, what they were doing. And then we shot for a long time. They came back to Spain. We shot for 140 days, which is a very, very long shoot and chronological. So it allowed us to be able to shoot the script, but at the same time to explore. They were so well prepared that I allowed them to try things. You know, there was a lot of improvisation on set in order to capture this kind of truth that I'm looking for with actors.
Michael, for you, I mean, how did you get on the musical vocabulary that you wanted to use for this film?
I think, you know, for me as a writer, as a composer, I always try to put myself in the place of the character. So whoever I'm writing for, I'm always trying to say, how would I feel if I was in that situation? And that is my primary way of writing, because I want to always feel like I'm being as truthful as possible. And that is fine if you're working on, you know, emotionally I can get through that if I'm working on Spider-Man or Planet of the Apes or something like that. But this was something where I knew this happened to real people. I knew that this was something that was not made up. The things that were happening in the story were things that actually happened. So to put yourself in that place is it's almost like acting when someone wants to sort of take on a role. That's how I approach it. So it was like, I didn't expect the amount of emotional sort of work that I would go through in order to be able to write something that I felt was honoring what happened to these people. And that was a really tough thing for me. And day in and day out, and I would come home at night and my wife would be like, are you mad at me? Is there something wrong? I'm like, no, I'm just in this headspace. And I would need to every night flip over, and I would have to watch something like The Love Boat or something to just sort of like for a few hours be able to be like, oh, okay, you know, but inevitably the next morning I was back in it, and it's okay. I was happy to be in there. I wanted to be in this place that they were. I wanted to feel that, even though it was difficult, but that's where it all starts, just trying to empathize and understand what it is that other people go through, and that's sort of where it all goes. And from there, it's just like whatever came out of that is what ended up in the film, you know. And we've known each other for so long. We're both huge film score nuts. We love filmmakers. We love movie making, and so I feel like we have a very similar taste in how we approach storytelling. And for me, storytelling is all about just putting yourself in the shoes of that character whose story you're telling, you know. And it was just it felt a huge weight the whole time of writing.
I mean, for me, one of the fascinating things and one of the things that really works well about the score is that there are some beautiful lyrical, melodic passages, and they go and then they stop, and there's silence, and then it picks up, and then it stops. I mean, you really use silence throughout the score.
Yes, I truly 100% believe, and always have, that where you choose to put music is as important as where you choose not to put music. You know, because when you don't have music is something that really pulls you in. It's the thing that attaches you to a particular film or whatever. And when you overuse that, it becomes, it doesn't work anymore. It's like sitting next to somebody and telling them the same joke for 2 hours. At some point, they're like, I get it, you don't need to, you know. And so many movies do this, and for this, I really only wanted the music there when we absolutely needed it. And there's some music that I wrote that eventually we took out because we knew we did not need it, you know.
I like so much his approach that I took it one step forward.
Yes, and he would call me, I'm afraid to tell you that I took out this cue. I was like, good, you don't need it, take it out. Yes, so, yeah.
So it's such an emotional journey that and this is why Michael is so good. Visually, the movie is so powerful sometimes that you don't need more than that. And also, silence is very interesting in cinema because it doesn't tell the audience how to feel. And we're putting so much in the visual that if you put in the visuals and in the music, sometimes it's too much, you know. So it was very interesting to play with silence, not telling the audience is not that used anymore to silence in cinema, which is a shame. Because
Well, in this film, I think it's ultimately the most important thing is when you are involved in silence, when you're only there with your own thoughts. That's the most uncomfortable
it
place to
happened to
be.
me. The first thing I did, I was with Pedro. We went to the Valley of the Tears where the plane crashed in the same time of the year. So it's very impressive when you see those mountains. It's the biggest mountain range on the planet, you know, and the silence there. What you hear the most is yourself, is your breathing, which is very symbolic. Because to me, at the end, this film, it's this journey of self-discovery of these characters, learning about who they are, the essence of who they are. Also integrating their shadows, you know, and being more complete by doing so. So going to the mountain to hear yourself, to see who you are really, you know. It felt very symbolic, it felt good, it felt right. And silence is one of the most important elements in this score.
Pedro, for you, what were the keys for you visually? Because I feel like you had to shoot things in vast, wide open spaces, and also in sort of unimaginably cramped spaces.
Yeah, and that contrast is part of what I think it's interesting in the movie. But as silence works in sound, it works in image too. You know, when you have a wide canvas, it's like one little stroke becomes super powerful, right? And you have that picture, it's like almost all white, and you have a small Numa walking. You know, that kind of stuff becomes super expressive. In integrating all the elements we had, you know, like these mountains were big part of the story. It's like this monster that traps them, and the way we show our characters also, it's like as if they were bigger than life too. You know, sometimes we show them from a little bit lower angles, and we get very close to them. Sometimes we use this lens that Juan Antonio loves, that's just like a probe lens that makes you feel, like you're tiny against these huge people. And it was very interesting to play with the vastness of the Andes Mountains that are like so big. Sometimes we used to zoom out from the plane and it will never end, when we saw the valley, the fuselage was so small that we couldn't understand. We had to find ways of, okay, how do we actually understand where they are? And I don't know. It was beautiful when we were there at the Valley of Tears. It's like everything clicked. We were like, oh, okay. You gotta go and do it to understand how it feels, because you gotta go there and you see that vastness and that size. It's and then our main guideline.
There is this line,
Yeah.
when in the script that says you cannot look at what's going on here, what's happening here, with the eyes of before.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
we had to
Totally.
look from the
Yeah.
inside. We had to go to the mountain where
Yes.
everything happened, ask for permission to tell their
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, and
And to me, one of the most important things that we've done together in this film is to explore image in a way that we were all the time obsessed about finding images that
Yeah.
felt meaningful.
yeah,
That
that
had
told a little
meaning.
bit more than the what was there. That's that went a level extra.
But like having an element of like very meaningful images,
Mhm.
like profound images, and when we found them, we were so excited. I think, for example, that last moment when Numa touches Roberto's foreground and leaves
Forehead,
forehead and leaves a stain of blood, and feels there's something there that feels almost sacred.
Yeah.
How his injury is leaving a print on Roberto. Of course, Roberto will say the day after, we're leaving tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you see that in that image, Or Roberto, when he buries the sock of food, that sock full of food, it's that moment where the meat becomes again spirit, So we were obsessed in finding those images that will tell you the story in a different way. We knew the story so well. There's 2 movies before and this one. There are a lot of documentaries and books. So we had to find meaningful images that will tell you the story in a cinematic way and in a very profound way, almost sacred. So
Yeah, you're right. I never thought about that. We knew the story so well that this exploration we were doing was a little bit more, more like a how do you say, like a poetry of what was happening. I mean, I don't want to sound too, but it was that we knew the story so well that we were like looking for something else.
I mean, obviously this is a story that a lot of people know the shorthand, and the shorthand can often just be plane crash cannibalism. How do you then make a movie that really focuses way beyond that into these people, their relationships?
Yeah, that's what I think we mentioned that with Javier, that this line from Daniel Fernandez, we were never better persons than in the mountain. That's what really happened. That's how they felt about the story. When they came back, suddenly they really face cannibalism. Not only about what they did, but about what the other people was behaving towards them. There is one scene that is not in the film because we decided that it was not helping in terms of the rhythm. But as soon as the journalist arrived, and there is like a real footage of an interview, the journalist knows that Nando has lost his mother and his sister, and he asks the questions: Are you going to celebrate Christmas with your family? Do you have more brothers and sisters? And Nando didn't answer. And then the journalist asked again, do you have more brothers and sisters? And at the end, Nando said, I had a brother, I had a sister and my mother, but they died in the mountain. And then the journalist asked like this to Roberto, and you, Roberto? So imagine after being 72 days, finding love in the most horrible of the situations, feeling empathy in a way that they gave everything they had left to the other ones, you find it. That's the real cannibalism. That's what they really face. That's what they have been facing for 50 years with this story. Every time I read an article and they mention the cannibalism, that's a minor part of the story. It was the way these people gave themselves to the other ones, basically, what makes this story big. So that was why we had to do this film. They needed this film in order to change the narrative, because the stories are important. This is what we do. We tell stories to the people, and by doing so, we are changing the tale. And by changing the tale, we are changing their lives. Not only their lives, but there's a beautiful line from Eduardo Strauch. He says, we were 16 when we came back, but now we are 100. So these people also needed the film.
Well, I think we have to wrap up, but that's a beautiful note to end on. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.